Hey, this is Dwight with Bikes and Blades. I want to talk to you today about putting sealant in your bicycle tubes. Obviously, tubeless technology is a huge thing nowadays. People are adapting the mountain bike, tubeless sealants and such to cross bikes, big there, and then also it's really kind of making inroads into road bikes as well. And I think that's great, and I think it's kind of neat. But the thing is, there are drawbacks to going with pure tubeless, and one of the biggest things is just the mess and the bother of it. Especially if you do have a catastrophic flat that you can't fix on the road, then you've got this tube full of sealant, and what do you do, right? How do you deal with that? So what I found is that you can get a lot of the benefits of having sealant without actually having the mess of putting it directly into the tire and having to deal with tubeless ready rims and everything. You can have the flexibility of running any tire you want, any clincher tire, any rim, if you put the sealant into your bicycle tubes. So I just kind of want to talk about that a little bit and also show you some things that I found that I'm going to kind of review, and hopefully this will be helpful to you. Chiefly this little sealant injector from KOM Cycling. This is something I found online. I was trying to find a better way to get sealant into the tubes and tires. I mean, this could be applied to tubeless or sealant in tubes. And I found this on Amazon. And so I'm going to show you how this works a little bit. And kind of contrast with the straightforward thing of just getting yourself the tubeless sealant from Orange Seal or whoever it is, stands, whatever you're using. And kind of the difference between their typical application tubes where you go on the outside of the valve stem versus this new sealant injector that goes inside, and show you why I think that's maybe a better way to go. So anyway, I'm going to cut to actually doing this on the bike. Alright, so talking about getting sealant into your tubes or your tires, whether you're running true tubeless or you're just putting sealant into the tubes, the way you basically do that is you get a bottle of sealant, and then you have a little tube that comes with it that slides over your valve stem and attaches to the bottle, and then you invert this thing and you squeeze the sealant into your tube. Now the thing I don't like about this is a couple things. One is that because you are putting this tube over the outside of the valve stem, there's leakage around the threads, and the sealant gets all over the internal threads of the valve stem as well, which can kind of muck up the valve mechanism. Obviously, you need a removable valve core, valve stem. I think that goes without saying. But even so, you remove the valve core, and what do valve cores look like? They look like this. Take it out. When you put it back in, you get sealant all over these threads here on the actual valve core. And so you tend to kind of glue the valve stem into the valve tube over time, and it just makes a mess. And there's leakage around the outside as well. And then the next thing that's difficult is how much sealant are you getting into your tube? It's hard to tell. For instance, this is a 4-ounce bottle, and you can kind of see it's sort of opaque. You can kind of see the level of fluid in there. Maybe it's a little hard to see on camera, but you can kind of see the bubble line. If you shake this stuff up really good to get it mixed up, which is what you have to do before you put it into your tube or tire, this bubble line, the level of fluid in there becomes very hard to see because the whole thing gets coated with bubbles. And so then, when you got this upside down, you're trying to squeeze it into the tube, you're distorting the bottle, and you can't really watch the level, and it's hard to tell. And even if you do what I've done here and you mark increments on here, for instance, like I say, 4-ounce bottle, I've got 4 even marks on the side of the bottle, starting at the full level, and you can kind of tell if you let it rest and settle. You can say, okay, I've got 1 ounce, 2 ounces, whatever into your tire or tube. But it's a pain in the neck. It's really hard to tell what you're doing. So what I found is this thing. I figured somebody had to make this, and sure enough they do. KOM Cycling makes this sealant injector. And I found this on Amazon, and it's really straightforward. It's just a syringe, kind of a large gauge syringe with some lure lock fittings and a little plastic injector. And it goes through the inside of your valve stem instead of around the outside. So now you get the sealant straight into the tire and not all in the threads, internal and external. Much better deal. And you get to see exactly how much you're putting in there. So here's what this thing looks like out of the package. Basically, it's a syringe. I'm sure it's repurposed medical stuff, but it is nicely marked. It says KOM Cycling, so nobody thinks you're up to no good. And yeah, basically You can just draw up however much sealant you need. It's marked in 1/2 ounce increments, which is really handy. For road tubes, maybe 1 ounce is good, or road tire. Mountain bike, obviously, cross tires, maybe closer to 2 ounces. So now I can take my sealant and I can get it really well mixed up. Right? And now I'm just going to draw up the amount I need. I'll basically drop that little hard plastic injector needle in there, and then I'll pull up 1 ounce of fluid. Now I've got a little bit of an air bubble, but I'm not too worried about that. That's not going to affect my accuracy much. But if I was worried, I could just kind of squirt that back out and then drop back up again. And now I've got exactly 1 ounce of fluid, right? So that's ready to go. All right, so now I've got the syringe full of the sealant that I'm going to use. I'm going to bring in my wheel here. And this is, it's going to be a little awkward because I'm doing this in front of a camera and not a whole lot of room. But hopefully I can do it kind of one-handed. So we'll let the air out of this guy. This tube does not have any sealant in it right now, as far as I know. Maybe I'll be surprised, but I think this one's empty. Alright, so once we got all the air out of the tire, or tube, as the case may be, we're going to come in here and remove the valve stem. It's a little hard to do one-handed. And this can especially get tricky if the sealant has gotten into the threads, so you may need a pair of pliers on the actual valve stem itself. Then the valve core comes out, and then we're going to come back with our KOM sealant injector and just drop it down through the center of the valve stem, and then fill it up with sealant. Ta-da! Just that simple. And there's like minimal mess, no stuff leaking out around the threads, no sealant in the threads themselves. If you're doing this for the first time, I've actually put some sealant in this tube before, so the valve core does have a little bit of sealant on the threads, but just put that back in there. And then we're ready to reinflate. And that's just all there is to it. It just gets rid of all the mess and fuss of trying to get that tube full of goop, over the threads and then pull it off without making a mess and spilling stuff everywhere. It just makes it a lot easier. So there you have it. I think it's really cool. If you're working with sealant, this KOM cycling sealant injector is just a great little thing. It's not expensive, and it makes it so much nicer and easier to deal with getting sealant into the tires. So I hope this was helpful. I really think it's a neat addition to the whole tubeless sealant. So if you're using sealant already and you're looking for a better way to get it in there and deal with the stuff, I highly recommend this little KOM cycling sealant injector. Whoops, upside down. Just a nice little addition to your toolkit. One thing I should mention is just to clean it out. Just drop some water and then cycle the thing a couple times, and you can clean it right out. It should last just about forever. So if this helped or you found this useful, I hope you subscribe to my channel. I'll upload lots of reviews of tools and equipment and gear and just general cycling information. And also check out links that I have to other sites on YouTube and to the web in general. So thank you very much for watching. Appreciate it.